Okay, and we are live. So, welcome everyone. We're here with another discussion with Brother Ruben. One of the few people that actually joins to talk to me. So, welcome, Brother Ruben, and we're talking about the topic of names now. So, just to give a little background before we get into this, there are beliefs regarding the name of the Messiah and the name of the Most High God. So, some people will be very strict in how you can pronounce the Messiah's name or what you can call the Most High. I'm saying Most High, but we're gonna get into the. I'm gonna start saying God in a second. Probably we'll see. So I'm gonna let Brother Ruben lay out his position because I know there's different viewpoints regarding that. Some people are more strict. Some people are a lot less strict. So, uh, Brother Ruben, let us know what is your position on the names, and we'll kind of get into it a little more.
Okay, sure will. Hello to everybody. Anyone listening in, thanks for coming. Um, so yeah, I'm a Hebrew Israelite. I'm a white Hebrew Israelite, man, and this is something that I've come to the knowledge of. Calling myself a Hebrew. I used to be a Christian. Back in 2014, man, I found out that the Sabbath was Friday night to Saturday night, and there's strict laws concerning the Sabbath in the Old Testament. And I found out that the New Testament just complements the Old Testament, and that it's not really a New Testament. It's really a renewed covenant. So, with that being the case, I don't believe that the law is done away with. And I don't believe that any of the commandments are done away with. Matthew strictly says, the Messiah himself said that he did not come to do away with the law, but to uphold it, to fulfill it. That word fulfill, if you do a little study on the word fulfill, it means to stand upright or to fully teach. So he come to teach us the law. He is the Word made flesh, and that word is the Old Testament. It's the Torah, the prophets, and the writings, also called the Tanakh in Hebrew. So on his name, that the reason why I said all those things was to say that his commandments are not done away with, and there is a commandment concerning the Creator of heaven and earth's name, and that is, do not take my name in vain. And that's Exodus chapter 20, like verse 6, 7, somewhere down in there on Exodus 20. So I hold to his name being Yah or Yahuwah or Yahweh or Yahovah. There's different ways to pronunciate the Tetragrammaton, which is Yod, Hey, Vav, Hey. He revealed that name to Moses, and then Moses passed it down to Israel. So that's what I hold to. I think all the scriptures support this, and I don't believe that we should call upon any other name. I think that the Hebrew is a beautiful language. I believe that the Creator spoke the worlds into existence in Hebrew. I think that I know the word says that he is the Elohim, or the mighty one of the Hebrews. So I consider all believers to be Hebrews, whether they realize it or not. So yeah, it just boils down to his commandments. So I think that's sufficient, for now.
All right, the audio is like kind of going on and off a little bit. It's like going quiet a few times. So whenever you can, try to go. Is there a car over there or something?
Give me just a second. I'm gonna try this with my headphones in.
Okay.
That might help a little bit.
Yeah, let's see if that
Can you
works.
hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah, I'll let you know if anything goes off. So I think for the purposes of discussion, because I know we differ on the issue of the Torah and whether it's still in effect. So I think for the purpose of this discussion, I'll just grant that the law is still in effect. Christians are still required to, or believers are still required to keep the commandment, sake of just the discussion, so we can get to the main point. So you said that you believe that the name of the Most High, you would say, could be either Yahuwah, Yahweh, Jehovah. There might be different ways to pronounce it, but it's that specific rendering, the Tetragrammaton. And I guess the same for the Messiah, right? Yeshua or Yahusha in the Hebrew dialect. And so I want to ask if someone tends to use, for example, let's say they use Jesus or Lord or God. Do you believe that person can still be saved? That they're just an error, or that's like a core issue where if you do not believe in Yahusha, then you're saying that you believe in a different Messiah. Just kind of on that point, because I know John Truth, he talks about Jesus being a false Messiah. So I want to know what your viewpoint is on that.
So, John, I really believe that we can say without a shadow of a doubt that once we come to know truth and we reject it, that's when it becomes a problem. Now, as far as the Christian goes and them ignorantly calling him Jesus or God or Lord, yes, I think grace and mercy can apply for sure. But once we come to know the truth, that's when we're held accountable to it. And I do believe, John, that there is a big difference between Yahusha and Jesus in the minds of anyone who's ever heard those two names. Does that make sense? There is a difference.
Okay. So I guess what this will come down to mainly is just, is it valid to pronounce, like, for example, Jesus or the Latin or Greek transliterations? Now, as far I would just, one more question, as far as the titles Lord and God go, what do you think of those titles? Because I want to make sure I understand everything here before we delve into this.
So I think, John, what it really boils down to is that God, Lord, Jesus, they're all different languages that what the original apostles and the prophets and our forefathers spoke. So they're a translation, they're a transliteration. So I believe that when Christians hear the word God, Lord, Jesus, they think of the Trinity, because the Trinity is the most popular number one doctrine when it comes to Christianity. So that, to me, in my understanding, brings confusion, because Yahuwah is not a Trinity. He's one. So that's my biggest issue, is that Lord, God, and Jesus, it brings about another mindset that is not biblical.
Okay, so you mentioned the word translation and transliteration. So I just want to ask about that, because I've had this question before and I haven't had it answered yet. We're gonna get now to the main meat of the discussion. Those were like questions just to kind of understand your viewpoint. So now I want to get into the meat here. So on the topic of transliteration, are you aware of anywhere in the scriptures, whether that's Hebrew scriptures or the New Testament, where it condemns transliterating names? Because I have not seen that anywhere in the Bible. In fact, it seems to be practiced in the Bible. So
okay, so here's the thing, and like we talked about last meeting about the chosen, who I believe are the blacks, Americans, and the Native Americans, and the Spaniards or the Mexicans. I believe that they are part of the 10 tribes, 12 tribes of Israel. They are part of the bloodline of them. I think that their identity was stolen. I feel like my identity was stolen. I feel like, we were cast off into slavery. I think you were cast off into slavery. I think we were cast off into slavery due to rebellion, our rebellion due to our forefathers' rebellions, etc., etc. So in that slavery, we've lost our identity and our names have been changed. I don't know about you, but when I was growing up, John, I used to go by Cooter. Cooter was my nickname from the time that I was born until the time that I looked up my first name in the Hebrew and found out that it was Hebrew and that it has a meaning. See, that's the thing about the Hebrew words and the Hebrew names, is that they have meaning. And if you translate that or transliterate that into another name, it loses its meaning. In that culture, in that Hebrew culture, names meant everything. Just like we know in this country in America, a handshake and somebody's word means everything. If you ain't got those two things, then you ain't got no backbone. You ain't got nothing. So that's what it kind of boils down to, is losing the meaning of the name. And I know without a shadow of a doubt that the blacks who were brought over here on the slave ships, that their names were changed. A lot of their names ended with YAH or L, or they started with YA, or they YAH, or they started with, something that you could look at and read and tell that it had Hebrew, background.
Okay. So on that point, couldn't the ones that are gifted to teach the scriptures and to guide people through the scriptures, the ones that are knowledgeable in the scriptures, let's say the teachers, because if I pull up, like, if I grab this, what is this, Believer's Bible Commentary, I'd assume at least that or some other, there will be commentaries out there that will point out that the name Jesus goes back to the Hebrew. So on that point, couldn't teachers just continuously point that out, that this English transliteration of the name is in Hebrew this, and it means this? Because I'm aware that, yes, Jesus goes back ultimately to the Hebrew Yeshua, or as some people pronounce that, Yahusha, and it is the name that means Yah's salvation, or Yah is salvation. And go ahead.
How is that possible when the J is only like 600 to 700 years old? So before Jesus, it was Iesus. Did you know that a lot of parents who in Greek time, in Rome time, in the time of Yeshua, a lot of parents would end their children's names with US. Just like Jesus, they would end a boy's name with the letters US in honor of Zeus. See, that's what we're not grasping and we're not understanding, is that behind a name is a law. There's a person, there's morals, there's character, there's might, there's strength, there's weaknesses, or whatever it may be. So when you change that name to something else, you automatically change that person's identity, because in that culture they took names very, very seriously. So
okay. So you mentioned two things there. You asked me, how is it possible if the J didn't exist until 600 years later? I want to address that first, then we can go to the US, because I'm a little confused there, but we'll get to that. So the J, are you asking how is it possible that Jesus goes back to Yeshua, or were you asking me how can teachers say it goes back to Yeshua if it starts to, like, just
I mean, yeah. I mean, both. I mean, really both, because they're both kind of the same question to me. Is that how can Jesus go back to Yeshua when the J is only like 700 years old?
All right. Let me see if I can. I don't know if this is going to be reversed. I'm going to write this on the whiteboard so we can kind of see. If it's reversed, I'm sorry, folks. I can't fix that. Jacob reached out to me. He said he can join, so I'll see if I can send him the link. Give me 1 second. Let's do this. I'll send him the link. I'll write this down, and we can continue. Give me 1 second, folks. Well, no one, one person's viewing right now, so I don't know. It's like going on and off. It's like someone is joining and leaving, but whatever. So let me send Jacob the link. Where is he? There he is. Actually, wait. I actually have him friend requested. There he is. Paste this. And then let me write this down here. So how does Jesus go back to Yahusha? So how to write this again? Oh yeah, there you go. Jesus, and then that goes to, and then okay, there we go. Now, sorry, my handwriting has always been bad, so it's this. Put this here. So this will probably look a little messy, and I don't know if it's reversed image. I might have to make my screen like this. So can you see this?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, is it reversed or is it?
No, I can read it.
Okay, good. So I'm trying to do this here. It's reversed for me, but so we have Yeshua here, which would go to Jesus. So Greek typically names ended with something along the lines of OS or something along those lines. Most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time. That's because nouns in that language, in the net normal. So, for example, right, like in English, there's the subject of the sentence, and then there's other functions of nouns. So for the subject of a sentence, a noun typically ended in os. So names, especially for the men, would end in something like that. So when you get Yeshua to Greek, and we talked about the Greek New Testament before, so Jacob's here. I'll let him up in a second. Actually, Michael's also here. Wow. Okay. Let me make my point, and then I'll figure this out. So typically, so the yeh in Yeshua kind of came in Greek to ye, the iota eta, which is just an I and like a long A. And then they kind of preserve sort of the pronunciation of Yeshua with Yesu. But since Greek names ended typically with the os or something along those lines, it ended like that. And you can see that in earlier Greek texts, where the name Yeshua in Hebrew is used, like a Greek translation, for example, the Greek Septuagint. For example, Joshua, or his name is Yeshua, it's the same name. In the Greek, it was translated to Jesus. In Latin, it would go Jesus, and then since the I's in these names, these transliterations almost function like a J, in English we got Jesus. Ruben is here. I had to largen the screen. So Ruben is here. I'm gonna put it back, and let me figure this out. So is Michael joining us? I have Jacob here, but is Michael joining us?
I'm not sure. You said he was in the background, didn't you?
He's in the chat right here.
Oh, I don't know if he is or not.
Yeah, Michael, let me know. I'll try to make a community post with a link. If you want to join, just let me know. I see the live chat right there. He said he just got off work, so I'm not sure. So we'll figure it out. If you think you might be available later, if we're still here, then let me know. But yeah, so he's got to drive. So maybe in like, I don't know how far away he is. So so did you understand what I was kind of saying? That was from memory, so I don't remember all of it, but it was something along those lines that that's how the name sort of functioned grammatically. And
yeah, and I'll respond, John, with I don't trust the Greek. I don't like the Greek language. You know, there's a verse, and you could bring it up too if you want. It's in Zechariah 9 verse 13. And this is one of the reasons why I don't like the Greek. I don't like the Greek because I don't like the Greek mindset. I don't like the Greek mindset because the Greeks all mostly worshiped more than one Elohim. I understand that the New Testament was translated into Greek, but I still don't like the Greek. I prefer the Hebrew because it was originally written in Hebrew, the Old Testament. And the New Testament come out of the Old Testament. So that's what I always revert back to, is the Old Testament, which is the foundation of my faith. So the Greek also, I just learned this just a few weeks ago, that the Greek does not have a sound for the Y or the H. And I found that really, really convenient, because the creator of heaven and earth's name starts with a YH, but the Greek doesn't have those sounds. So it leads me to ponder on why. Why is that the case? Why does Greek change? I don't understand that either. Like we were talking one day, I think, about this word in Colossians chapter 2, about, real quick, about the shadows of the Messiah and how these are a substance of things to come. But the word but was in there. And then we looked it up in the Hebrew, and it said that but could also mean and for. So those are three different words in the English that have very distinct differences in meanings. So I think that was a pretty good example of the Greek and why I don't like the Greek. So
Okay. So you said that the Y and H sounds are not in the Greek. Is that correct?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. So the sound that the name Yeshua makes, yeah. I think so. Hold on, let me show you here. So there's this here. It's called the iota. It's basically the letter I. And then where is it? Hold on, give me a second. And then there's the eta here, which would be pronounced like A. So if you combine these, it would be A, right? So I think that's how we would get the Y there. Jacob's making a few points in the live chat. Maybe we'll talk about it in a second. I just want to address this really quick. Now the H, there's no specific letter for it, but you can get an H with what's called a rough breathing mark. I don't know if I can look it up here. Let me actually try to look it up so I show you what I'm talking about. But with a rough breathing mark, if it's above a letter, it's like an apostrophe above a letter, and when it's there, it has the pronunciation H. So if there's an O and that rough breathing mark above it, instead of ah, it would be ha. So let me see, rough.
So if that's the case, John, then how do we go from Yeshua, or Yahusha to Iesus? If you're basically explaining to me that you can translate Yahusha or Yeshua to the Greek, how does it go from Yahusha, which is Yah is salvation in the Hebrew, that's what it means, to Iesus? Why? Why do that? Why? That's what I'm saying, is why?
Whoops, hold on, really quick. I just want to show you what I was talking about really quick, and then I'll answer your question. So this is a smooth breathing mark, and then this is a rough breathing mark. So that's what I was talking about. But so you asked why Yahusha goes. Didn't I answer this already with the whiteboard? Or are you asking why transliterate? Are you asking why transliterate?
Yeah. Why transliterate it with different sounds? Because Iesus doesn't really sound like Yahusha.
So the issue is that, especially during that time, so the gospel started going to not just the Hebrew, but also to the Greek, and then to the Hebrew that didn't really may not have spoken Hebrew because he's not in the area where they. So he might have been under a culture with more Greek. But anyways, so in that time, when you're reading out a document, and they're trying, like, for example, the New Testament, and then or Paul's letters, and they're trying to give the letter to someone who doesn't know Hebrew. If you have the names in Hebrew, I suppose they could do that, but the teacher would have to point out, and I wouldn't say there's anything wrong with that. I think it's just it causes unnecessary confusion. They would have to teach you, hey, this construction you see here is Hebrew, and it's the name of our Messiah. So it would call, and then today's day and age, not everyone really knows Hebrew. So if you could do that. I just think that since we don't typically speak Hebrew today, it just makes it so, okay, we can identify what this name is. And if we don't hide the fact, because I know maybe I'm not aware of any, but maybe some people will try to hide the fact that it goes back to the Hebrew. Me personally, I know that already, and I think we should be teaching that it does go back to the Hebrew. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does, I guess. And I think that I'm just gonna, John, I'm just gonna be blunt, man. I think the enemy is very real, and the thief, the liar, the murderer, he's very real, and he desires to steal your identity of who you truly are. And I know truth. I know that Yah is one. I know that he come to save us from our sins and from death, and to get rid of fear. And so that scripture that I gave you, Zechariah 9, verse 13, it literally says that in that day, the Hebrew will be against the Greek. It literally says Hebrew versus the Greek. So I don't trust the Greek language. I don't trust Greek men. I can spot Greek men from a mile away. I don't like it. I'll never be okay with it. I think that when you hear the name Jesus, you automatically think Christianity. When you hear the name Yahusha, you should think of a Hebrew, a true Jew of the tribe of Judah. And there's a big difference between Jesus and Yahusha.
Okay. Jacob, do you want to unmute and say a few things since you're here? I'm going to pull up the verse. It's right here. I don't know when specifically this is fulfilled, this verse. I think in the Maccabean revolt. I'm not sure. I'm going to probably check commentaries because I actually don't know. But go ahead, Jacob, if you want to say anything.
Yeah, I'm good. I don't want to say anything right now.
All right. Well, then let me just see. Let me check a quick footnote. Okay, this reference does not necessarily refer to the Maccabean Wars of the intertestamental period or indicate that the author lived in that period. Grace may have been used as a symbol of pagan nations that war against God's people. Okay. For I bent Judah my bow, fitted the bow with every aim, and raised up your sons, O Zion, against your sons, O Greece. I made you like the sword of a mighty man. Okay, hold on a second. So, I'm not sure if this is like a prophecy of something to come, or if this is just because I don't really know the context here. So I'm trying to figure out what's going on because.
Okay, so let me break it down for you just real quick. Okay, this is future prophecy. Okay, if you keep reading on in Zechariah, it emphatically tells you that Yah will come to this earth and he will grab a sword and he will fight along with the tribe of Judah against, the army of hell, and demons and men and giants and things like that. So this is emphatically a future prophecy.
So, if it and you're saying it's a fight against the Greeks?
Yes.
Okay, so, couldn't that just be fulfilled in the Maccabean revolt? I'm a little confused because I'm not super familiar with this chapter. I'll be honest, but
So it's my understanding, John, that oftentimes when we're reading in the Old Testament a prophecy, that prophecies can be dual prophecies. That means they can be fulfilled in one area, but not fulfilled in another. But if we had time, we could go over chapter 9, chapter 10, chapter 11, and go into the day of Yahuwah and his appearing. For example, if you keep reading just the next verse right there, it says, then Yah will appear over them, and his arrow will go forth like lightning, right? And then it says, and Yah Elohim will sound the trumpet, which the Feast of Trumpets is coming up, which is another issue I have with Christianity, because they got rid of Leviticus chapter 23. It says, Yah will sound the trumpet and will march forth in the whirlwinds of the south. Will march forth, right? And it goes on to talk about his coming. Like, for example, right here in 14:3, it says, then Yah will go out and fight against those nations as when he fights on the day of battle. On that day, his feet, verse 4, on that day, his feet shall stand on the Mount of Olives. So it is my understanding that Zechariah, not the beginning of it, just 9 through 14, that it's a future prophecy, not fully fulfilled.
Okay. Your voice is starting to get quiet again. Is it possible that you can? Go? Do you still need to stay in that area you're at, or are you able to move somewhere else?
Yeah, I've got free Wi-Fi right here, so that's to help with the connection. So I'm able to connect with you guys. So I can move around a little bit. There's a truck running right there next to me. So
all right.
Is that better?
I think it is. We'll see what happens. There was something you said earlier, because I know we went into the point of how does Jesus go back to Yeshua. There was something else you said. I don't remember exactly what it was, but I wanted to also talk about it. I'm not sure. Oh boy, I should have written it down.
Yeah, well, I said that mentally, when you say the word Jesus, you automatically think of Christianity. But then when you hear Yahusha, most people have not heard that. Most have not heard that because for 2,000 years, with just a remnant, know him by Yahusha, that majority, 90%, know him as Jesus, and that he was the one who died upon the cross. Well, the thing is that he was never called Jesus while he walked this earth. Would you agree with that?
I would, yeah.
All right, so he was never called that, ever. He was most likely called Yahusha, Yeshua, Yahawashai. I don't argue about how to pronounce his name. As long as you're close within that, I don't know emphatically that it's Yahusha. It could be Yahawashai. There could be other ways you pronounce it, but that's my issue, is that when you say Jesus, you automatically think Christianity, you automatically think Trinity, you automatically think the law of Moses is done away with. You can now eat pork. You can now break the Sabbath. You can now, you don't have to celebrate the feasts. All these things that come with Christianity, you get that with Jesus, but you don't with Yahusha.
But aren't there groups that specifically say Jesus, but still believe in keeping the Sabbath and keeping the laws of Moses, like the Seventh-day Adventists, I believe?
Yeah, there are. Yeah, there are. And I just think that brings confusion.
Okay. So let's do this. I think when we begun, you alluded to what was it? Exodus chapter 20, I think, verses 5 to 6, and then you talked about calling upon the name of Yahweh or Yahuwah, and that's around the old some places in the Old Testament, in the New Testament a few times. So do you want to talk about those passages? Because I think those are verses that get brought up, and I have my thoughts on those.
Yeah, sure. So Exodus chapter 20, verse 7. It says, "You shall not take the name of Yahuwah your Elohim in vain, for Yahuwah will not hold him guiltless who takes his name in vain." So there's 4 different Hebrews, right?
Are you talking about 4 different Hebrew languages or dialects?
There's 4 different eras of Hebrew.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So originally you have the pictograph, and then you have the Babylonian, and then you have, I think, one more, and then you have the modern. So I don't know that third one, or maybe the second one. But what I'm trying to get at is that if you look up these words, Exodus 20, verse 7, "You shall not take the name of Yahuwah in vain." Vain. What does vain mean to you?
Well, really quick, the voice is getting quiet again. I'm not sure what's going on. I'll be honest. I don't know if maybe it's because you're outside. I'm not sure. It's like I don't know.
Sorry about that, man. I'm on the road. You know what I mean? I'm not at home. I'm on the road trying to take care of some business, so I'm just stopping at McDonald's and getting some Wi-Fi. Wanted to have a little conversation with you, so
okay. All right. Well, I think because it's not that bad, but it's noticeable. So, but we'll keep going. So, what does vain mean to me? So, for example, doing something in vain, where you try and fail. So, as far as I know, this verse is mostly talking about, for example, let's say you take an oath, and then you fail that oath. That oath is in vain. So, if someone says in the name of God or in the name of the Most High, whatever, I will be by your side, and then that person betrays them, I would say that's an example of taking the Most High's name in vain, right? Or using it for a false cause. Like if I went around leading an army to slaughter people without any kind of justification for the war, saying in the name of the Most High or the name of Yahweh, let's go attack these people, right? That's taking his name in vain, because he does not approve of that. He never said, let's go do this, because he never said that. And I think in the New Testament, it actually talks about that, if I'm not mistaken. I don't remember the exact reference, but I think it speaks about being careful with applying. Well, for example, Job, right? Job's friends, they applied things to Yahweh, saying things like, oh, maybe he's doing this to you because your children sinned, or things like that, or maybe you sinned throughout the whole book. And then at the end, he says to them, I think in chapter 42, verse 7, I believe, you have not spoken of me what is right. So when I hear the word vain, that's what I think there. I'm not sure if that's where you also see it.
Can you look up that verse in the Hebrew?
Which verse? Exodus 20, verse 7?
Yep.
Yeah, sure. Let's do it here. Exodus 20. And here it is. I don't know if I can zoom in. Yeah, I can. All right.
Yeah, that's better. Now go down to the word vain.
Actually, let me do it here because it shows me this one right here.
Can you go down to the definition of it though?
Yeah, I'll do that.
And what the number in the Strongs?
The number is H7723. The word is, I think that's save. It's pronounced. Or shave. I don't know. I cannot pronounce Hebrew. So
What's the definition of it though?
We have, which part specifically you want me to read? Want me to read the outline?
Well, does that say empty?
It says
emptiness,
vanity, falsehood, emptiness, nothingness, vanity, emptiness of speech, lying, worthlessness of conduct. So it has a few different usages, but it would be like, here, let me zoom in. And there's the Strong's definitions down here. We can also read that.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, let's go down there. From the same as H7722 in the sense of desolating, evil as destructive, literally, ruin or morally, especially guile, figurative, idolatry as false, subjective, uselessness, as deceptive, objective, also adverbially, in vain, falsely, lie, lying, vain, vanity. So it has connotations of lying as well.
Okay. And it also does say there uselessness.
Mm-hmm.
So it's my understanding that vain does mean to bring it to nothing. So if that's the case, if that's the simple definition of it, then we are not to cover it up. And that's what we do when we change his name, is we cover it up. And then when we cover it up, we take away the law. We take away who he is as a person. Now we have the ability to make him out to something that he's not. Because like I said before, in a name, you have a person.
Okay. So if I'm understanding correctly, the way our interpretations basically differ on this passage then, correct? Like you say it includes making the name to nothing, which you would say is what Christians do, and then I see it as like using his name and an oath, but falsely. Do you believe in interpreting scripture with scripture?
For sure.
Okay, because every time I see something along that lines mentioned of the holiness and sacredness of the name of the Most High God, it seems to be used in the sense of do not, I hear a little background noise, but do not use it to a sense of, my goodness, I lost my train of thought. Hold on, give me a second. Okay. What was I going to say? All right, right. So the way I see it used in the New Testament, I'm sorry, it's used in the sense of like, do not say, we will do this thing. Do it as, say, for example, if he wills, if the Most High wills, then we do that thing. Or it talks about not making oaths in the name of the Most High to not denigrate his name. Whenever we see that mentioned anywhere in the Bible, I always see it connect, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I know, it's connected to specifically that, where we're not to make false oaths, we are not to make false promises, we are not to use God, where you're not to use his name to do evil practices. And I think that's actually kind of seen here in the definition. I'm not sure because it's like, I don't know, Strong's here. I think this version is a little weird on the website here, just the way it defines things. But I think it kind of has that connotation. So that's just what I see when we look at the rest of the Bible. I don't know if you have an example where you think that's mentioned, but anyways.
Okay. So just to kind of support what I'm saying as far as not getting rid of his name and not covering it up and not changing his.
Can I just say, I would agree that if someone tried to get rid of the Hebrew completely and hide it, I think that would be wrong. Just so we're clear. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
So here's just one example, just one of many, where it talks specifically about his name and proclaiming his name, a specific command from the Most High through Isaiah to proclaim the name of the Creator, and that's Isaiah 12, verse 4. It says with joy, verse 3, it says, with joy you will draw water from the wells of salvation. Verse 4, and you will say in that day, give thanks to Yahuwah, call upon his name, make known his deeds among the peoples, proclaim that his name is exalted. So to me, that's a very powerful verse supporting what I'm saying about covering up his name when he specifically tells us numbers of times to proclaim his name, to give thanks to his name, to share his name, to exalt his name, and to call upon him, call upon his name.
Well, so I guess we're talking about calling upon the name of Most High, because earlier here, I think you said that he can grant mercy to those that are deceived and don't know the true name, as you said. So would you say that this calling upon the name necessitates that they say Yahusha, or can they still, again, like you said, with ignorance, call upon Jesus or God, but still be saved because of his mercy?
Let me ask you this, John. What is the Most High's name? What do all scholars, including the Jews, what do they all
Yahweh, right?
agree? Yes, exactly. Okay. So that's what the scriptures say. Right? So why would anybody want to call upon someone else when we have his name? We all agree that's his name. And the scriptures specifically tell us that his name is to be exalted. This is the name that he revealed to those on the earth through Moses to Israel. Why do we want to take that away from somebody? That's what I don't understand. Is it why? Because it's convenient? Because it's what everybody says? No. I've expressed why I disagree with calling upon the J name, and Lord and God, because it brings confusion. Those words aren't really in the Bible. They're not in the Bible.
It was written in the New Testament was written in Greek, either you like it or not, and the Old Testament was translated into Greek, the Septuagint. Either you like it or not, it's the new. You can't go back and change the past. The Septuagint, the Jews are already into between 250 BC and 150 BC. The Septuagint was translated in Greek. It was translated in Greek, and the
So
Old
that
Testament. renders the name Yahoshua in the Hebrew to Jesus in Greek.
This is Jacob speaking, by the way.
Right. I got that. So that makes it okay. Just because they did that, that makes it okay. I would beg to I would
How is the name if God would have prevented them from writing the Old Testament and the New Testament in Greek. Paul wrote the majority of Paul's letters was in Greek. The majority of Paul's letters he was writing to Gentile Christians, and they didn't speak Hebrew or Aramaic, so he had to write in Greek. That's why the New Testament was written in Greek.
right.
On that point, a lot of the arguments for the deity of the Messiah actually come from the Greek Septuagint. So, for example, John 13:19, the Messiah says, "Oh my goodness, I'm sorry, I'm forgetting." Now that you may know and believe that I am He. And then if you go to Isaiah 43:10 in the Greek Septuagint, the Greek of both verses are very, very similar. So the New Testament authors often went back to the Greek Septuagint to enforce their arguments on the Messiah not just being a mere mortal, but the actual Most High.
Yeah, there's truth in all things. You know, there's good in all things, and most things. That doesn't necessarily make it right. And I would argue too that Matthew, Mark, and I'm wanting to say another New Testament book were actually written in Hebrew, and they have found ancient manuscripts of Hebrew of the Gospels. So it would be my understanding that they were originally wrote in Hebrew. We just don't have access to them at this time because I think that they're hidden. And we do agree, right, that all the apostles were Hebrews. They were Jews who come to the knowledge of the Messiah, accepted him, had faith in him, and most Hebrews or Jews at that time spoke Aramaic. Aramaic was a common language. It's a Semitic language, and it was a sister language to Hebrew. So they do have New Testaments in Aramaic translated to the English. This is just to me, this is just a matter of a mindset and returning back to the ancient path of the Most High that he talks about in the Old Testament, and Paul references it in Acts, the ancient path. And I used to not have a desire for any Hebrew at all. I was like, I've got the English, that's all I need, But a switch went off. Literally a switch went off, and I went from 1 second being okay without the Hebrew to, man, I need to have this because it's going to give me a greater, deeper, richer understanding of the Most High, because the Old Testament was originally written in Hebrew. So therefore, you can't translate the New Testament off the New Testament. You have to go back to the Old Testament to translate the New Testament.
Okay. Can I share a verse on the screen? I want to go back to the point on calling upon the name there, because you mentioned like why change it, but something I'm a little confused about isn't that's applied to the Messiah, specifically his name, like his earthly name, calling upon, we'll say Yahusha. Now, just to be clear, you wouldn't say that that's wrong if someone called upon the Messiah's earthly name to be saved, correct? Let me put the verse on the screen.
Yeah, that's his name. So that's the name that we should use, and that's what he was called when he walked this earth. And he said be baptized in the name of Yahusha, which Yahusha means Yah is salvation.
Yeah, because I was gonna go to Romans chapter 13 verses 9 to 13. That actually wait a minute. Oh my gosh. Okay, hold on. I quoted the wrong chapter. I'm sorry. I think it's Romans 9. Hold on. No, not Romans 9. Oh goodness, Romans 10. Sorry about that, folks. Yeah, Romans chapter 10 verses 9 to 13 applies that specifically to the Messiah. So the issue I'm having with arguing, well, okay, hold on. Is there something going on like is there something going on like outside there? Because I'm hearing voices in the.
I kind of want to do. Yeah, it's just youngsters walking by, getting on their bikes.
Okay.
So yeah,
can you mute for a second so I can just.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah. Okay. So, the issue I'm having with kind of pointing to the Old Testament constantly says, call on his name, calls his name is number one. If we're going to make that a purely strict command where you cannot call upon Lord, well then let's say someone says I will call upon the Most High, but they do not use the Tetragrammaton. Like I think we're over literalizing the usage of name there. And the other thing is, well, then in the New Testament, now we have the Messiah reveal himself as the Most High in the flesh. So when we call upon his earthly name, isn't that a different name? So I'm a little concerned about over literalizing it. I'm sorry, I couldn't get that out. So yeah, I just want to be careful in how we interpret those texts so that we're not making salvation so difficult where, okay, if someone doesn't know the Tetragrammaton, they can't be saved. You can go ahead now.
So in response to that, John, that verse that you just brought up in Romans 9, right?
Romans 10, 9 to 13.
Romans 10. I want to show you something, okay? And this is really, really important. There was a Jewish sect called the Masoretes, something like that. And they removed the Tetragrammaton from the Tanakh. They removed the creator of heaven and earth. They removed his name and replaced it with the word Lord. So, just like I've said before, I always revert back to the Old Testament. So when it says in Romans chapter 9,
Chapter 10.
Chapter 10, sorry. Chapter 10.
That's my fault because I was the first one that said 9, so that's on me.
And it says, you are in verse.
I started from verse 9 and went to verse 13.
9, right? Okay. So what that's saying to me is that if you confess with your mouth the Master Yeshua and believe in your heart that Elohim raised him from the dead, you will be saved. Verse 12 says, for there is no distinction between Jew and Greek, for the same Master over all is rich to all who call upon him. Verse 13, whoever calls on the name of Yahuwah shall be saved. The word Lord and the word Lord up there before Yeshua are lowercase, capital with lower O-R-D. But verse 13, it's all capitalized. So it's my understanding that if I was to translate this into Hebrew, that it says, whoever calls on the name of Yahuwah, he shall be saved. And Lord is master or Baal in the Hebrew. Did you know that?
I actually have a video on this, and I'm happy to go down this route if you want to. Go ahead and make your point, and then we can talk about it.
So check this out. In Hosea, chapter 2, verse 16. So it's my understanding, according to this verse, that Yahuwah, the creator of heaven and earth, is tired of being called Baal. He's tired of it. He's tired of being called Baal. He's tired of being called master, when really he wants to be called our husband. And that's what it says. In that day, declares Yah, you will call me my husband, and no longer will you call me my master. But in my ESV right here, it says my Baal. So, in closing, we got to really pay attention to, capital L, lowercase O-R-D, and then capital L-O-R-D, all caps. In Hebrew, or in Romans chapter 10, you call on the name of the Tetragrammaton, Lord, because that's what it is in the Old Testament, John. And you can't change that, and nobody else can.
Okay. I think you were right on that point in Romans. If you were to translate into Hebrew, because Paul was quoting the Old Testament, you would see the Tetragrammaton there. You're absolutely right. That's why Lord was lowercase when it said for Jesus in there in the English, because in the Hebrew, if you were to translate into Hebrew, it would be Adonai probably. So there's those two different Hebrew words. So on the topic of Baal, as far as I know in this verse, now I heard this from a Muslim, so just we'll take it with a grain of salt. It might be wrong because he was trying to use this verse for a specific reason. But what he said was that in this context, he's abolishing this name because of its implications with the god Baal. So in the Hebrew, when it says there, you shall no longer call me my Baal, it's just because of the implications of that, how Baal is used of a god. Now, I heard that from Muslim. I don't know if that's the case here. It doesn't sound all too wrong. So
read verse 17.
Okay, yeah. I just want to be
read verse
sure.
17.
Verse 17. For I will take from her mouth the names of the Baals, and they shall be remembered. Wait a minute. Hold on. I will take from her mouth the names of the Baals, and they shall be remembered by their name no more.
So with that verse, Yah is trying to distinguish himself
Right
from every other Elohim.
Right. Okay. Now, you know how I don't know if you're bilingual or not, but you know how sometimes in languages one word in English can have a few words in another language? Like there's a few ways to say hello in, maybe well, let's take Greek for example. You saw, remember last time we looked at the word for but in Colossians 2:16. There are other words in the Greek for that. So sometimes in languages there are different words in one language, but in the English you could translate it the same way. So with the issue of Baal, if you take the name Baal and use it in the sense of a title instead of the proper name, then yeah, you would translate it into master or lord. But when you use it as a proper name, then it's not necessarily just lord. And you see that in the Hebrew Bible, like Yeshua, right? It can be a proper name or it can just be a title. So with the case of Lord, we see it used in English Bibles not because it's a reference specifically to Baal. The term Lord doesn't necessarily refer to Baal in every case. It's taking from the Greek word kurios and the Hebrew word Adonai, because the term Lord essentially will mean like someone in authority, master. Like when someone says "my Lord" to in the medieval age to their master, right? It's someone that's has authority. So if someone wanted to, I wouldn't have any problem with them trying to refrain from using the English Lord if they want to avoid referring to Baal. That's fine. But since I see it used throughout the Bible, I don't think there's an issue with it as long as you know what you're talking about. Because typically when people hear the term Lord, they don't think Baal. So a lot of people don't even know who Baal is. So that's just kind of what I see there. You can go ahead and respond if you want. You're muted.
Hello?
Hello?
I think the word just goes back to Christianity, and you automatically think of the Trinity, and you automatically think of the God of Christianity, because then he was not called Lord. Then he wasn't called God. Then he wasn't called Jesus. He was called Adonai or Adon or Elohim or Ben Elohim, which is son of Elohim. These were some of the titles that he had. So I just think it automatically causes one to go back to Christianity, because Christianity is one of the number one religions on this planet. And I think it's in serious error, and teaches lawlessness and teaches confusion and things like that. So I think Baal does mean master, but in the Old Testament there was a false Elohim called Baal, and the children of Yasharel did go after this false Elohim called Baal. So he's saying in Hosea 2 that I don't want to be called that anymore. I don't want to be called that. I want to be called, a husband, instead of Baal. And I think it's in the Hebrew, it's Baal in the Hebrew there. So if you use the word Lord, it just covers it up. It just covers it, the fact of what it. So you've never. I got a question for you. So you've never read English translation and then looked back into the Hebrew and is like, man, that's a big difference between what the English is saying and what the Hebrew is saying.
I think I don't have an example off the top of my head, but I think I did. Yes.
I don't either, but I know I have. I know emphatically that I have. Like, for example,
actually, now that I think I found one now, actually, I thought of.
Go for it. Go for it. Share it.
Deuteronomy 22:28. A lot of people bring that up and they say that it's actually law about women marrying their rapists. And in the NIV, it uses the word rape. But the Hebrew word, if I'm not mistaken, it means, I got to go back to it. I don't remember off the top of my head. But it doesn't necessarily mean, it can mean rape, but not necessarily in every case. So in this case, first of all, verses 25 to 27 already dealt with rape. So verses 28 to 29 are more about seduction and then almost like wooing her. And so that word means like to grasp, I think, but it can be used metaphorically to like entice someone, right? You grab them with your words, and then so.
But it was right, but it's consensual though.
Yeah, it's consensual. Verses 25 to 27 already they already dealt with rape. The rapist gets stoned to death, rightfully so.
So that's a beautiful example. But to me, it's all over the Bible. It's all over the Bible where something was added or something was taken away or the definitions changed, or the word doesn't quite line up with what the Hebrew's trying to teach. I mean, I know there's example after example of that happening. So I just choose not to use the word Lord. I choose not to use the word God. I choose to not use the word Jesus, because to me it brings confusion and it does not line up with what I teach.
This is Chris Terry from last Saturday's open panel, I believe. Dub. So this was a. Let me just kind of recap this. So from last time, I told Brother Ruben that we're going to try to do this discussion topic, and so that was an open panel. This is not an open panel. I did have Jacob join us because Brother Ruben wanted him to show up. Michael, I don't know if he's going to come because we might be ending somewhat soon. But Dub, he's not here right now.
Yeah, I need to actually end pretty quick too, man, because I got to go get these car parts for my truck. So
okay, yeah.
Actually, I'm running out of time. So
yeah. So I might shoot you an email because I think we can talk about the law next sometime. And Chris, this is the same Chris that showed up, right? I think I shot you an email too. I didn't get a response yet because I've been wanting to talk to you too. The only issue is I think we can only do like maybe one more of these for the time being, only because come September I got my senior year of school, so I got to focus on that. So we can try. It's just time is going to be a difficulty, but we can try.
So one more soon, right?
Yeah, we'll try next week hopefully, and okay. I'll email you the topic. I think the law will be a good one to talk about because you mentioned it. I think we should probably get that one out of the way. And yeah, Chris, if you could just double check your email, make sure I got the right one.
Is Chris a Hebrew?
Yeah, he's Hebrew Israelite. We were going to talk about whether Gentiles can be saved, and I recorded a video on that just now, hoping to get that out soon.
Yeah, just so y'all know, I am a Hebrew Israelite, but I do believe that Gentiles, when converted through grace, through faith, and accepting the Messiah, that they now become a part of Israel, and they are considered as native born to Israel through faith in the Messiah, without a shadow of a doubt. Any man, any color can come to the knowledge of Yeshua and be saved.
Yeah, I think you got a drop of water on the screen, I think, because I see like, but anyways, oh yeah, see, there's another one right there. Yeah, I mean, if you wanna tune in, because I recorded the video right now. I've got my case ready. I just got to edit it. But yeah, Brother Ruben, I'm gonna let you go.
Yeah, please.
Chris, hopefully we can talk soon. I don't know. I'll email you, Ruben, as soon as we're done here.
Right.
You can go, Jacob, if you want to say anything before I end the stream. Let me get the banner up.
All right. Thank you, John. Well,
yeah.
Till next time.
Till next time. God bless.
Shalom.
Or God bless, if you want to say. So Jacob, you want to say anything before we head out here?
Christ is King. Don't read your Bible, most importantly, and read the fathers. But yeah, Christ is King. Read your Bible importantly. So yeah, show. Bye.
Bye. All right, there we go. So thank you all for tuning in. It's a great discussion. We'll see what I can get out for the next week, but time is going to be difficult for me soon, and so I won't be getting things out much. In fact, I was thinking of taking somewhat of a break from YouTube. Not yet. I'll think about it. I haven't decided yet, but I have to figure out if I need to focus on real life. We'll see. But yeah, with that being said, tomorrow, I'm actually going on Christian Apologetics Network channel. We're going to talk about Muhammad in the Bible. So if you happen to have your positions on that, whether you agree or disagree, feel free to show up. And yeah, with that being said, God bless you all and goodbye.